Howdy and welcome to the Farg Motor Pool. For those of you that have not been on this channel before, then you're probably not familiar with the works that we do, but we are restoring military vehicles, usually from scrap yards in this sort of condition, and we do them up and when they end up in this condition. I'm currently working on one at the workshop, so I've been rudely dragged away to come and do a presentation because some people might not understand what exactly a Peugeot P4 is. Everyone's heard of G Wagon, and they understand what a Mercedes G Wagon is, but the Peugeot P4 was developed at the same time and is more or less identical. So with no further ado, we're going to walk down a line of a couple of P4s, or a few P4s we've got out for you to have a look at. And I would just go through the history of the vehicle. So the Shah of Iran, he wanted to build a magnificent army. He wanted to spend a great deal of money. He wanted the best tanks there would be. He wanted the best Jeeps there would be. He wanted the best 4x4s. And so he approached Mercedes, and Mercedes were working on the Unimog, and so he bought some militarized versions of those, but he had them designed from scratch a 4x4, which he wanted to be the best in the world. And they came up with a design that was called the G Wagon. So the Shah didn't have a great time, got deposed in 1979. The tank development turned into the Challenger, which is what the British Army adopted, and we benefited from all the work and design work that had happened. And the Germans were left with quite a number of these, see, I've even said it because they look so similar, left with a lot of these Mercedes G Wagons. They anticipated trying to sell them to the German army, but the German army wasn't interested because they had the Iltis, which they'd just taken on. They tried to sell into the civilian market, and they were quite costly, and they really didn't have a name for themselves, so they didn't sell a high number. Now, it was at the same time that the French were working with some very out-of-date older machines, and they were the Hotchkiss M201. And that had been a rehash of the World War II Willys Jeep, and it had come to the end of its life. And so the French were looking around for a new vehicle, and they were approached by the Germans, and the Germans said, would you be interested in buying all these fantastic G-Wagons that we've got? And majority of them had petrol engines. Now Peugeot, sniffing a commercial possibility, said they were very interested. And so it was actually Peugeot started to purchase the Mercedes G-Wagon running gear. So that's the axles, that's the chassis, that's the suspension, that's the transfer box, etc. They bought the bodies from Daimler Puch, so those were exactly the same as the military version of the G-Wagon, but the French, being for the French, they wanted to make it very Gallic, and so therefore they put in their own very sturdy Peugeot diesel. So that was the Peugeot diesel that's being used in the 504, a very common, normally aspirated diesel engine. It's still going on today in Africa. They absolutely love it because it's absolutely bulletproof. Now, they also put in their own 4-speed box. Now, there was a 5-speed box around, but that was deemed to make these too quick for the troops, so they had the 4-speed box. So let's go and have a look. We'll start on the militarized one on the end, and we'll have a look at it and see what sort of features it's got and what those similarities are to the G Wagon. So I'm going to run through this Peugeot P4 as if you know and are familiar with the Mercedes G Wagon. So hopefully I'm not pitching it too high or too low. I'm just trying to help people understand what the main differences were. So from the outside, when you actually look at it, it looks more or less the same. It's got the same forward-facing mud flaps. It's got the similar sort of bumper. I think the French had this extra bar placed on the top. But the most telltale thing from a distance is the square headlights. Now these were actually out of another Peugeot civilian car, and so those got reused. The circular lights that the that Mercedes had, they were dispensed with in preference to these square ones. Even once you take those out, behind is the circular hall. So it is a G-Wagon body, but they've put their own headlamps in there. Let's go around and have a look at the driving position. Well, passenger stroke driving. So down inside of here, we've got coil suspension. We've got that on all 4 corners. Here's a shock absorber, which is following behind. And there we have a trailing arm that goes into the chassis. It's both 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, which is selectable. and that is the same as the military G Wagon. You'll have noticed on this one we've got a couple of guns on it. These are sort of period correct French machine guns. So we had the GPMG, the French had a version that was built in 1952. So we've got a couple of these on here. Yes, this is in infantry configuration, but we've just chucked it on there so you can have a sort of an understanding of what it looks like when these were all tooled up. So we've got the AA-52, which is in a mount, which I shall get out of the way. That's just getting in the way of everything. And inside you can see, unlike the Willys Jeep that the French were using before, the Pioneer tools have now moved to the inside of the vehicle. So they're actually in here, just inside the footwell. There's also the axes over on the other side. This is an absolute pain in the bottom, because when you're trying to swing your feet out, you just always catch on these. So I don't know whose bright idea it was. Quite good. I suppose they were losing them from the outside of the previous vehicles, so they thought by putting them on the inside they wouldn't lose as many. But they just really get in the way and make access in and out quite difficult. Also on this side, it's missing its bracket that would have held the FAMAS rifle. We've still got one on the other side, I'll show that to you. But that got in the way as well, because the actual rifle would be sat here, so it was quite difficult to get in and out of the thing. So we go around and have a look at the driving position. So, the business side of the Peugeot, left-hand drive, as were the G-Wagons. I think some G-Wagons were sold to Singapore, and they ended up with right-hand drive. So they can actually be changed quite simply. The bodies do allow for that. So this is the driving position. The sort of telltale here that we can see this is actually a French origin is the fact that we've actually got the rampant lion. So that's the Peugeot badge in the centre. The dials, they're quite unique. I think someone might be able to put down in the comments what sort of Peugeot car they came out of, but this sort of barnacle on the top is quite unique. It's very similar to the G-Wagon. And then it had its military-esque switches. So these were used in the Hotchkiss Jeep. These ended up in armoured cars. They were used in tanks. So these are just generic switches that were used across the French military range. Down on the floor as well, we've got down here, so this is what I call the dead man switch. So that's just an isolator. So that enables you to just disconnect all the electrics if it's ever left. The reason being, you will have noticed, it doesn't actually have a key. They are quite simple to start. So make sure this one's in neutral. There is just a pull button here, and when that's pulled out, the engine turns over and catches. Oh, must put the ignition on once. Whoa! There we go. And to turn the thing off, you use the ignition. Never ever turn the engine off with the isolator. Reason being, you completely muller the alternator by doing that, if you keep doing that on and off all the time. Okay, so it came with an integral roll cage. We've got another AA-52 set up there at the moment, and now you can actually see the bracket for putting the FAMAS rifle in. So this is one of the places. I think there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 places you could put the rifle. One of them was across here. One was actually on the back of these B posts. There was another on the back door. And of course you can sort of see where the base of the rifle went here. And of course, if you're sat in here, by the time you swing your legs around and the gun's actually here, it's just impeding your movement. And inside an axe. Here at the back on the P4 is something the G-Wagon's never had. And this is a tie down. This comes off of the chassis. Benz down has got these top and bottom rings. The bottom ring was for strapping down when it was in aircraft or it was going on to, say, a freight train. The top was for actually lifting these by helicopter. So one of the French specifications, apart from sort of the depth of fording the water, that this could go through, and we'll talk about that in a second, they wanted to make them heli-transportable. And so there is a hook here, and the straps went across to the front on D-shackles. It's the fording element that made quite a difference to the profile of the side of these Jeeps. So with a G-Wagon, they're quite low. The doors, if they have full metal doors that is, or even some of the vinyl doors, were sort of full length in the aperture. But on here, I'll show you what I mean. Can you see how thick that seal is there? So actually, once you take these off, because I've taken a few of them off in my restoration time, underneath is the original body of the G-Wagon, and the actual door frame continues down and runs along here. So most G-Wagons have a smaller sill, but some of the early military G-Wagons and the Peugeot P4s have this enormous sill. Now this enormous sill is one of the downfalls of it. The reason being, it's actually hollow. It's got holes in the back, which is great for French troops to drop things and for me to find sort of 40 years later. But what it does is it allows water to get in. And as soon as the water gets in, it sits on top of the inner sill in here and it rots it through. So these are the regular places that these Jeeps go. You can see it starting here already on this one, at the back. And again, and surprisingly, you can just about see it bubbling through here, so that'll have to be exposed, but surprisingly, good nick there. But this is actually a completely separate panel that was added. Now, one question I do get asked is, what is the rarest thing that you've ever seen on one of these? So if you found one, you get quite excited about it. Anything to do with weaponry, but I'm not allowed to purchase those because these are licensed deactivated guns. But there is two things, or actually three things, that are very difficult and you never really see on these. Number one is the correct pin for the front bumper. So this went in here at the front and it dropped through there, and it assists in towing and also sort of winching out, etc. Those always go. They are very expensive to buy. And so leaving one in there and driving along and it bouncing out, even though it's got a clip inside, is something I don't do. So that's number one. And number two, and I failed to bring my props with me, are the bungs that go in the floor, because it was meant to go through water. It was considered that you had to be able to drain the thing really quickly once you got onto dry land. So you will actually see in the floor is an enormous hole. So here's the hole that the rubber bung would go in, and that's how we let the water out after you've been fording. But would you leave the bung in? Not really, because when it rains, the footwell would fill up and your feet would get wet. So the first thing you ever did when you've got one of these, take the rubber bungs out and throw them away. So you hardly ever come across them. The only ones I've actually ever found in the vehicles is where they've fallen into the sills and I've managed to pull them out. So there we have. This is 1984, this. Definitely seen some sort of action. I found, not live rounds, but empty cases in the sills. There's no sort of bullet holes or anything, etc. in it, but it was absolutely full of sand, and we've had to sort of like hoover that out just for this video. So that's really exciting. We've really done nothing with this. It's as we purchased it in a sort of a awful state, to be honest. Behind us is the Farg Motorpool Hack. So this is the one that we drive around the most. We just throw loads of things in the back and get on with it. So this one's slightly different configuration again, same bodywork, but we've actually got the roof up on this. If we go over and have a look. These are really nice canvas roofs. Well, canvas is sort of rubberized vinyl. They come with a door that is easily removable. So these just, he says, putting on it, whoa, there we go. There's the door. Easy to fit. Tops of the doors just pop out. There are no window winders. It's been a long day, honestly. Already it's been a long day. We've only just started. Right. Okay, so those doors come off. They have tops because there is no windows to speak of. It's all vinyl. And then we have this foldable piece of kit on the back. They fold down quite easily. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this roof down just to show you how one of these fold away, because a lot of people might not have seen that before. So fast forward if you want, and we'll go on to, I'll be coming back to you in the next few minutes, having a look at our final, most complete and cosmetically pleasant Jeep to look at. Meanwhile, we will do some time lapse on this and I'll show you how to pull through.
Seconds.
Is it really?
No, 30.
You make it up. You don't count it at all.
We can count it on top.
I'll play it back and count before I edit it.
Oh my God. It's about 45 seconds.
Really?
Really.
I'm going to get myself a new cameraman. Right, okay. So, yeah, you wouldn't know I haven't done the other side. But, got the general gist. If you know what you're doing, you can do it pretty quickly. So, fantastic. Also, the windscreens fall down on these, so maybe we should do that as well and show you how that's done. So first things first, unfortunately, quick. Okay, so windscreen. Now, the windscreen is only held by this internal bracket here, and they simply click off. Before you fold the windscreen down though, you've got to make sure the windscreen wiper's out of the way. Actually, inside of the arm, there is a spring-loaded catch, and by thumping the base of the arm, the catch is disengaged and you can move the windscreen wiper out of the way.
Can we see that again, Baz?
Yeah, why not? Got two of them. So again, hitting it and bringing it down onto the bonnet. It's a side catch, and then the roof comes down. Now, it's worth getting the rubber catch. So it doesn't take much to knock the whole thing down. The roll cage is very easily removable. There's 4 bolts on one side and 4 on the other, and that can be taken down, so you've got a very, very low silhouette vehicle. So incredibly versatile, useful, great configurations on it. But are there any downsides? So here we have the final one in the lineup. This is our tidy Jeep. So we've shown you the Army Barmy, which is more or less as it came out of the French Army. Hey, you even got it to rhyme. I'm a poet and didn't know it. We've got the guns on there as well, but we can't drive around like that. So we have our old hack we just had a look at, and that's for us just throw things in the back, take it off-road, just had great fun in it and not worry about it. This is a little bit more tidy. Now, we've put it into what I would describe as a Teutonic grey. The French actually did paint them in this colour, but usually with a black diagonal sort of stripe over the top, and that was used for sort of urban combat, playing the enemy. So we haven't really cheated too much. It's still sort of militaristic in a way, but we think this grey is really nice on the Peugeot. So I sort of said, what let them down? French electrics are never great. They're very simple on this. There isn't any computers or anything to go wrong, but it's a bit of a rat's nest once you get in behind the dash. Everything's in quite tight, as you would on a modern car, and so finding any sort of problems is a little bit tricky. Starter motors can get lethargic over time, so you also need to make sure they're nice and crisp. You can have a starter motor taken out and rebuilt for about £110, 120 quid. Absolutely worthwhile doing that. Also, they are quite vulnerable if you start putting really dirty fuel in there. So if you're filling out old jerry cans, or there's any sediment in the tank washing around, that can get pulled into the injection pump. But the injection pumps can be rebuilt. It's about £400 to have one of those rebuilt. And the last sort of weakness is the radiators. They do tendency to leak because they're not a very robust radiator, the sort of civilian version, and they're right at the front. They're not really protected very well, so they can get holed and they can leak. I don't think they are available new, but you can have them rebuilt again for £200–300. So not the end of the world if you have those sort of issues with it. But let's just pop our heads under and have a look at this engine.